Where legends breathe again. Eldmyth. The mists of time are thick and heavy, obscuring the dawn of the world. But from the heart of the north, from the frozen fjords and whispering pine forests of ancient Scandinavia, a name emerges, resonant and powerful: Freyja. She is not a mere whisper on the wind, but a symphony of contradictions, a goddess of love who rides to war, a deity of radiant beauty who commands the darkest of magics. Who was this formidable figure who held the hearts of gods and mortals alike in her delicate, yet iron-strong grasp? Her story is woven not just from golden threads of desire and fertility, but from the dark, coarse strands of battle magic and profound, world-shaking grief. To understand Freyja is to embark on a journey into the soul of the Viking Age itself, to explore a culture that saw no conflict between the tender kiss and the bloodied sword, between the fertile field and the corpse-strewn battlefield. She is the lady of the slain, the mistress of seidr, the weeper of golden tears. So let us part the veils of history and myth and step into her realm, a world where a falcon's feather cloak can carry you across the heavens, where a necklace of unimaginable beauty can ignite a firestorm of divine treachery, and where love's passion is as fierce and unforgiving as a northern winter. Our journey begins not in the soaring halls of Asgard, but in the otherworldly realm of Vanaheim, the home of the Vanir gods. Unlike the warrior Aesir, the Vanir were deities of a different nature, masters of fertility, prosperity, and the deep, wild magic of the earth known as seidr. It is here that Freyja and her twin brother Freyja were born to the wise sea god, Njord. From her earliest days, Freyja was steeped in this potent, often misunderstood power. Seidr was not merely spell casting. It was the art of weaving and twisting the very fabric of fate itself, a power that could see the future, influence the weather, and control the wills and desires of others. While the Aesir, particularly Odin, would later covet this knowledge, it came naturally to the Vanir, and to Freyja most of all. Her very essence was magic. This inherent connection to the primal forces of the world set her apart, marking her as both revered and, in some corners, feared. When the brutal war between the Aesir and Vanir finally concluded in an uneasy truce, Freyja, along with her father and brother, were sent to live in Asgard as hostages of peace. But to call Freyja a hostage is a profound misreading. She was a conqueror of a different sort, who would soon weave her influence so deeply into the tapestry of Asgard that it became impossible to untangle. In the golden realm of Asgard, Freyja was granted her own magnificent hall, Sessrumnir, located in the field of Folkvangr, the field of the army. This was no peaceful meadow, but a place of profound cosmic significance. For here lay one of Freyja's most formidable and defining aspects, her role as a chooser of the slain. While the great god Odin took his share of fallen warriors to Valhalla, Freyja claimed the other half for her own hall. Imagine, if you will, the aftermath of a great battle on the mortal plane. The Valkyries, those awe-inspiring shield maidens, descend upon the bloody field. As they move among the dead, their task is one of divine selection. Half of the most valiant warriors are chosen for Odin's eternal feast, but the other half are chosen for Freyja. This was not a secondary prize, it was an equal honor. To feast and fight in preparation for Ragnarok under the gaze of the goddess of love and war was a destiny many a Norse warrior would have cherished. Sessrumnir, therefore, was not a place of gentle repose, but a grand and powerful hall, filled with the clamor of heroes, its very foundations thrumming with the anticipation of the final battle. Yet Freyja's power was not confined to the grim duty of the battlefield. She was, perhaps most famously, the goddess of love, beauty, and sensuality. In a world often portrayed as harsh and unforgiving, Freyja represented the fierce, passionate, and sometimes tumultuous fire of desire. She was invoked in matters of the heart, her blessings sought for fruitful marriages and for the more illicit thrills of secret liaisons. Her most famous symbol was the Brisingamen, a necklace of such breathtaking beauty that it became the stuff of legend. But this was no mere piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of her independence, her agency, and her unapologetic embrace of her own desires. The myths tell us that she came by this treasure not as a gift, but through a transaction with 4 dwarf craftsmen, to whom she paid a price that scandalized the gods, a night with each. This story, often told to diminish her, in fact highlights her autonomy. She desired the necklace, and she alone determined the price she was willing to pay, answering to no one, not even the All-Father himself. This fierce independence, however, came with a profound and poignant shadow: the enduring myth of her lost husband, Otter. His name, meaning fury or ecstasy, suggests a nature as passionate and restless as her own. The stories say that Otter would frequently wander the worlds, leaving Freyja behind. In his absence, she would weep, and her tears, falling to the earth, were transformed into tears of red gold, and into the amber found upon the shores of the northern seas. This is a powerful image, a goddess whose sorrow literally becomes a substance of immense beauty and value. Her search for Otter is a central theme of her mythology. She would travel the worlds under various names, seeking her lost love, her grief a private, aching counterpoint to her public power. This duality is the very heart of Freyja. She is not a one-dimensional figure of desire or war, but a complete being, capable of commanding armies and weeping golden tears, her strength and her vulnerability forever intertwined. Freyja's mastery of seidr magic was unparalleled among the gods, so much so that even Odin, the All-Father, sought her knowledge. Seidr was a complex and dangerous art, often involving trance-like states, ritual chanting, and the use of a special high seat from which the practitioner could perceive the hidden threads of destiny. It was a form of magic that, while powerful, carried a certain stigma among the warrior-centric Aesir, as it was often associated with a perceived bending of one's will, something that could be seen as unmanly. Yet, Freyja wielded it without apology, and Odin, in his relentless pursuit of wisdom, came to her as a student. This is a remarkable detail: the chief of the gods, the master of runes and sacrifice, humbling himself to learn from the Vanir goddess. It speaks volumes about the raw power and respect she commanded. She was the primordial source of this esoteric knowledge in Asgard, the seeress who could peer into the well of fate itself. Her tools of power were as legendary as her magic. Foremost among them was her cloak of falcon feathers. When donned, this magnificent garment allowed the wearer to transform into a falcon and soar across the skies, traversing the boundaries between the 9 worlds with the speed of thought. Freyja used this cloak not only for her own journeys in search of Otter, but also loaned it to other gods in their times of need. It was a symbol of her far-reaching influence and her connection to the animal kingdom, particularly cats. 2 great gray or blue cats, gifts from Thor, were said to pull her magnificent chariot. Imagine the sight: the goddess of love and magic, not in a chariot of war, but in a vehicle drawn by these sleek, powerful, and independent creatures, a testament to her unique and formidable nature. The theft of her Brisingamen necklace is one of the most thrilling tales associated with her, a story that highlights both her vulnerability and her relentless will. The trickster god Loki, ever observant and malicious, discovered how Freyja had acquired the necklace and saw an opportunity. Noticing that she slept with its clasp turned outward, he transformed into a fly, slipped into her sealed chamber, and stole the priceless treasure. Upon discovering the theft, Freyja's rage was a force of nature. She went directly to Odin and demanded its return. Odin, in a classic move of leveraging a situation, imposed a condition: she must instigate a perpetual war between 2 noble kings, a conflict that would never end, thus providing Odin with a never-ending supply of fallen warriors for Ragnarok. This myth is deeply revealing. It shows that even the most powerful goddess could be wronged, and that in the cosmic politics of Asgard, even love and beauty could be weaponized for the engine of war. The story of Freyja's involvement in the creation of the legendary Brisingamen is echoed in another epic tale: the recovery of Thor's stolen hammer, Mjolnir. When the giant Thrym stole the hammer and demanded the hand of Freyja in marriage as its ransom, the gods were thrown into panic. They appealed to Freyja, but her refusal was absolute and furious. Her neck swelled with such rage that the Brisingamen burst from her. She would not be bargained like a piece of treasure, even for the sake of all Asgard. It was Loki who devised the alternative plan. Thor himself must disguise himself as Freyja, wearing her clothes and the Brisingamen to trick the giant. The image of the mighty, red-bearded god of thunder, dressed as the goddess of love, is one of the great comedic moments of Norse myth, but it also underscores Freyja's indispensability. Her symbols, her identity, were powerful enough to be used as the ultimate disguise, a deception that saved the gods from ruin. Freyja's presence extends beyond the major gods to the very land and spirits of the Norse world. She was closely associated with the Disir, female spirits of fate and protection, often thought to be ancestral guardians. In this role, she was a protectress of families and lineages, a more intimate and personal aspect of her power compared to her cosmic role as chooser of the slain. Furthermore, her connection to fertility made her a goddess of the land itself. Farmers would invoke her for a bountiful harvest, and she was seen as a source of life and prosperity. This connection is beautifully illustrated in the myth of her lover, Otter. Otter, a mortal devotee, was so faithful to Freyja that he built a great shrine of stacked stones and anointed them with the blood of sacrifices. In return for his devotion, Freyja transformed him into the form of a boar named Hildisvini and personally carried him to the giantess Hyndla to learn of his ancestry, thus securing his inheritance. She was a goddess who rewarded true devotion with fierce, active loyalty. As the prophecies of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, loom over the Norse cosmos, Freyja's role remains crucial and tragic. The myths foretell that during the final battle, she will not be a passive observer. She will be there, in the midst of the chaos, a goddess of love and magic standing alongside the greatest warriors. While the specific details of her fate are not explicitly laid out in the surviving texts like the Poetic Edda, her presence is implied by the very nature of her responsibilities. Her hall, Folkvanger, exists to house the warriors for this exact event. It is unthinkable that the chooser of half the slain would not be present at the culmination of all their training. One can imagine her, perhaps not on the front lines with Thor and Odin, but wielding her seidr magic, twisting the fates of combatants, her face a mask of grim determination as the world she knows crumbles into fire and ice around her. The enduring legacy of Freyja did not die with the conversion of Scandinavia to Christianity. Instead, she went underground, her name and attributes whispered in folklore, often transformed into a spectral figure or a powerful witch. In some German traditions, the figure of Frau Holda, a supernatural matron who led the wild hunt and rewarded industrious spinners, bears a striking resemblance to Freyja, particularly in her connection to fertility and the domestic sphere. This evolution shows how deeply ingrained she was in the psyche of the people. She could not be erased, only transformed. Her name survives in the modern German word for Friday, Freitag, a direct link to Freyja's day, ensuring that every week her memory is subtly invoked. In the modern era, Freyja has experienced a magnificent renaissance. She has become an icon in neo-pagan movements, a symbol of female power, sexuality, and independence. She features prominently in fantasy literature, video games, and heavy metal music, often depicted as a warrior queen, a powerful sorceress, or both. Contemporary artists reimagine her, capturing her beauty, her ferocity, and her sorrow. She resonates with modern audiences because she is a complex, multifaceted figure who defies simple categorization. In an age seeking powerful female figures from mythology, Freyja stands out not as a passive prize or a vengeful shrew, but as a complete sovereign being, a goddess who owns her desire, her magic, and her power, and who weeps not from weakness, but from a love as profound as the seas. So, as the longboat of history sails on, the figure of Freyja remains, steadfast and enigmatic on the shores of our imagination. She is the golden tear and the steel blade, the loving embrace and the battle cry. She is the whisper in the fertile field and the thunderous charge across Folkvanger. Her story reminds us that the oldest powers in the world are not simple, that love and loss, creation and destruction, are two sides of the same coin. Freyja is the embodiment of that beautiful, terrible, and complete truth. She is not just a memory of a forgotten pantheon. She is a timeless echo of the passionate, powerful, and profoundly human heart that beats at the center of all our myths. Another legend fades, but the next awaits. Like this video, subscribe and continue the journey through myths.